The first punch landed before Ethan Brooks even saw the man's face. A backpack flew, a woman screamed, a teenager shouted, commuters scattered like startled birds, and in the center of the chaos, Ethan ran toward the noise, not away from it. Before we go on, subscribe to Echoes and Struggles. Stay with me through this one. It'll make you question who you call dangerous and who you call needy. Trust me, you'll want to hear the end. Ethan Brooks was 42, broad-shouldered and quick with a guarded grin. He lived in a third-floor walk-up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 2 blocks from a warehouse where he stacked pallets by day and took night shifts loading trucks when work was tight. His hands were calloused. His voice had that low, patient timbre of a man who had learned to carry more than his own weight. He wasn't rich. He wasn't respected by every neighbor. 2 years ago, he'd been scammed, wired $5 grand to a work opportunity that evaporated overnight. And it had hardwired a wariness into him that no sermon or apology could unwind. He kept his bills in order, his phone on silent, and his heart behind steel curtains. Pride and mistrust had become armor. But he had a small, stubborn dignity. He never let a kid go hungry. He paid attention to the old lady downstairs who forgot to take her pills. He carried his widowed neighbor's groceries up 3 flights of stairs without complaint. Those were the things he did quietly, like a man polishing his soul in the dark. On weekday mornings, the subway platform felt like a theater of hurry. Commuters with earbuds, mothers with strollers, students with backpacks full of ambitions. Ethan rode the same line sometimes, not because he had to, but because the city's pulse reassured him. People moving, things working, life continuing. He liked to watch faces. It was cheaper than trusting them. That morning, the platform smelled of coffee and wet coats. Rain had dragged the city into a gray mood. Ethan was halfway down the stairs when he heard the first shout, "Hey, give that back!" He didn't think. The part of him that had been taught to jump into frays, baseball games, schoolyard scuffles, helping a neighbor, moved his feet faster than his thoughts. He reached the edge of the platform just as a woman's scarf uncoiled and a backpack slid across the tile. A youth, maybe 17, lunged and grabbed the pack. Another man, older, sweating, face contorted, stumbled toward the youth with his hands out. The crowd tightened. A split second later, a fist swung. In the flash, Ethan assumed the wrong story. A young thief and an accomplice staging a distraction to rob the train. Scams had taught him to expect a seat where kindness might hide. So he dove in. He didn't see the man's face. He only saw motion. A hand, an aggressive pull, the glint of metal as someone clutched at the strap. He tackled the older man to the ground, teeth clenched, adrenaline roaring. For a heartbeat, he had the man pinned, feeling victory and judgment collide in his chest. Then the crowd cleared enough for faces to read. The man on the ground was not a robber. His lips were bluing. A thin film of sweat shone on his upper lip. His eyes fluttered. The youth who'd first grabbed the backpack was on his knees beside them, ripping open the pack. Inside, in a small plastic container, foil packets, a thin strip of glucose tablets, and a folded note with a name and the word diabetic. The youth looked up, not hostile, but terrified. He took the pack because he thought it was his. He's gone low. He needs sugar. His hands shook. Ethan's heart, which had been primed for blame, slammed into shame. He helped the kid open the glucose tube and fed the man the tablets. He sat back on his heels, the platform feeling suddenly enormous around him. The man coughed, color returning like paint to a washed canvas. "Thank you," he said weakly. Not anger, relief. The crowd that had gathered felt the softening like a change in wind. The woman who had screamed hugged her bag to her chest and said, "I'm sorry, I thought..." And the teenager wiped his face and smiled at Ethan through tears. But the damage had been done. Ethan's chest ached with embarrassment. He had attacked a man who needed help. He had assumed the worst, acting from fear rather than curiosity or calm. Pause now. Have you ever charged in thinking you were right and later found out you were wrong? Drop one line in the comments. It may free someone else from rushing to judgment. And if you haven't yet, tap subscribe to Echoes and Struggles. These stories peel back hard moments so we can learn. The teenager's name was Julian. He was 17, thin, sharp-eyed, wearing a hoodie with a volunteer patch stitched to the sleeve of his jacket. He carried a small kit, glucose tablets, water, a folded list of people with conditions, and a battered notepad. When he talked, he spoke like someone who had learned to be present in an emergency. "I keep kits on me," Julian said, voice steady. "I ride this train after school. My mom used to. She had diabetes. She taught me how to help." His fingers, rough with part-time work, trembled as he closed the glucose container. "I was getting it back to this man. He grabbed it, thought it belonged to him. He's confused sometimes." Ethan listened. The rubble inside him, the years of being burned, the suspicion like gravel in the heart, began to shift. He had leapt forward out of fear of being tricked. The truth was messier and kinder. Julian looked at Ethan, not with accusation, but with a quiet gratitude. "You helped, though. You didn't freeze. That counts." Those words landed differently than embarrassment alone. A pause, a choice. Ethan reached out, offered his hand. "You did good," he said. The handshake was small and real. Julian's eyes flicked around. Do you want to come with me? There's more work today. We check a shelter at noon. Could use an extra pair of hands." Ethan almost said no. He had bills, a shift at the warehouse, a calendar full of caution. But the city had just shown him an alternative. Action that wasn't performance or deception, just service. He took a breath and nodded. They spent the next hour together, talking fast over the rumble of trains, moving through the station to help a man with a seizure, offering a bottle of water to an elderly commuter who'd slipped, calming a child whose mother had lost sight of him. Julian worked with a practiced tenderness born of loss. He taught Ethan how to check pupils, how to keep someone comfortable, how to say, "I've got you," without making a spectacle. Ethan found his mistrust softening, not because his past wound closed, but because his hands were busy doing something else. They were building a muscle of trust. In the days and weeks that followed, Ethan met Julian again. He came to the noon runs when he could, trading a lunch break for compassion. He learned to carry a small kit in his backpack. He learned to listen for the small signs of trouble. He started to notice people again. The woman who always saved him the same seat because she remembered his tired eyes. The man who nodded as Ethan offered to help with a bag. One late afternoon, the shelter coordinator, a soft-spoken woman named Marisol, invited Ethan to teach a basic moving workshop for residents who wanted to find temporary work. His hands, trained on construction and logistics, turned the class into practical coaching. How to stack safely, how to read pallet codes, how to patch a torn hem or lift without hurting your back. He found pleasure in passing on what he knew. Julian watched him from the corner and said once, "You're good with people. You keep them steady." Ethan laughed, a short, surprised sound. "Maybe I'm not as jaded as I thought." The admission felt like dropping a weight. Kindness returned in neighbors, in managers who noticed his volunteer time and offered hours that matched his new schedule, in the shelter offering a small stipend that covered a week's groceries. More important, his posture shifted. The city's distrustful clamor dulled into a background noise he could ignore. And Julian? He started a youth crew of volunteers who carried kits and compassion. They weren't perfect. They were human, and they were present. Months later, on a platform that smelled like rain and second chances, a mother began to panic. Her toddler had wandered too close to the track. The train's brakes screamed. The crowd froze. Ethan was already moving. Julian was by his side. Together, they formed a human chain that guided the child to safety, while an older commuter with shaky hands comforted the mother. Afterwards, as reporters took notes and witnesses retold the scene in breathless gratitude, the little boy's mother hugged Ethan so hard he felt lightheaded. Julian grinned like a man who'd seen a miracle he helped create. "You did what you did," the mother said, face wet with relief. "You saved my son." Ethan felt something else, the steady, quiet truth that his actions had become larger than his fears. only way to find